The stars had always been humanity's playground. For millennia, they reached outward, leaving nothing untouched. The human fleets were the most advanced in the galaxy, their ships vast as cities, their weapons silent but deadly. But now, the galaxy remembered the day humans left, not in victory, not in conquest, but in warning. Captain Arlen Voss stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, the flagship of the human armada, and watched the endless black. His crew moved with practiced precision, yet even they sensed the tension in the silence. For centuries, humans had explored, colonized, and mastered worlds, but this mission was different. No one knew why the humans were leaving this sector. No one had the right to ask. Below the bridge, in the observation deck, civilians peered through the reinforced glass at the glittering nebulae, unaware of the storm brewing beyond the stars. Children pressed their faces to the glass, imagining the worlds that humanity had touched. Merchants, engineers, and scholars alike whispered rumors. Some said Earth had changed, and the humans had grown beyond the galaxy. Others believed the humans had discovered a force too dangerous for anyone else to control. Arlen's eyes narrowed as he scanned the star charts. Systems they had ruled for centuries were now empty, abandoned, yet meticulously cleaned. Every outpost had been deactivated, every colony evacuated. Not a single human had stayed behind. It was as if humans had never been here, and yet the galaxy would remember. Then came the first incident. A scout ship had approached the edge of the human sector, curious and unarmed. Moments after their sensors picked up the ship, it disappeared. Not a distress signal, not even a scrap of debris. Just vanished. The galaxy whispered of human technology so advanced, it could erase a vessel from existence before anyone could scream. "Captain," a young officer called out, her voice trembling. "We've got movement near the Andromeda Passage." Arlen turned sharply. The radar showed blips, tiny but fast. Not human. Not any species they knew. Ships darted in patterns that defied known physics. The humans had always challenged the galaxy, but it seemed something now challenged them. "Bring the fleet to standby," Arlen ordered. His voice was calm, but inside, he felt the first prick of unease. This was different. This was no ordinary patrol. Something had stirred, something that had waited for the humans to leave. The first warning came as a ripple of dread across the galactic networks. Messages from other civilizations arrived almost simultaneously, fragmented and garbled, filled with fear and disbelief. Reports of fleets vanishing, colonies abandoned, entire worlds falling silent. Wherever humans had been, now there was emptiness, and the galaxy had no idea why. On board the Eclipse, Arlen watched the stars blur as their engines engaged. The fleet moved in silence, and the vastness of space suddenly felt smaller, almost suffocating. Even his veteran officers whispered, though they fought to hide it. Fear was contagious, and the humans had always been the ones to instill it, not feel it. A sudden flash lit up the sensors. Another human colony, this one in the Trion Belt, vanished in moments. The fleet's AI struggled to process it. "It is as if they never existed," muttered Arlen. And then came the first voice. It spoke across the void, not in words, but in something older, deeper. It resonated through the hull, vibrating through metal and bone alike. The humans heard it and understood. It was a warning, not for them, but for the galaxy. "Do not follow," it seemed to say. "Leave these stars. Or face what humanity leaves behind." No one knew the origins of the voice. Some suspected it was an alien intelligence, ancient and powerful. Others whispered that it was something human, a final message left in code across the stars. But the effect was the same, a shiver of fear spread across every species listening. Humans were leaving, yes, but the emptiness they left behind was heavier than any fleet, deadlier than any weapon. Arlen clenched his fists. Humanity's exit was never meant to be a surrender. It was a lesson, a declaration, a challenge. The galaxy had grown accustomed to fearing humans, but it had never truly known what fear meant. Now, the first hints were appearing. Something watched, waited, and knew that humans would not remain. As the Eclipse and its fleet jumped to faster than light, The stars stretched into streaks of white, and the void seemed to pulse. Every officer, every civilian, felt the weight of the unknown pressing against them. Something was coming. Something that had waited for humanity to leave before it revealed itself. The galaxy had learned the humans could leave. Soon, it would learn why. And the universe would never be the same again. The eclipse and its fleet vanished into the light of faster-than-light travel, leaving behind empty systems and whispers of fear. But the galaxy did not wait in silence. Alien fleets, once bold and curious, now hesitated at the edges of human territory. Rumors spread like wildfire, ghosts of human worlds, ships disappearing without trace, messages that made no sense. Everyone asked the same question: why were the humans leaving? Captain Arlen Voss stood on the bridge, his hands gripping the railing as stars stretched into streaks of white. Every officer felt the unease, even the ones who had faced black holes and supernovae without blinking. This was different. This was not just the unknown, it was a warning. And warnings from humans were never empty. The first signal came from a small outpost at the edge of the Helios cluster. It was a garbled distress call, broken and distorted. They, coming, left, destroyed, do not follow. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving only static. Arlen frowned. Human technology had always been precise. No human outpost would fail like this. Something, or someone, was interfering. Scan for anomalies, he ordered. The fleet's AI pulsed across the bridge, highlighting readings that made no sense. Energy spikes, faster-than-light movements, and patterns that did not match any known lifeforms or machines. The humans were leaving, but whatever was moving now was not human. Deep in the observation deck, Lieutenant Mara Kessler watched the stars with unease. She had been among the first civilians to join the evacuation fleet, thinking it would be a routine journey. Now, she felt the tension, the silent terror that none of the seasoned officers admitted aloud. There was something out there, waiting. Something that had been patient for centuries. Suddenly, the fleet trembled. A massive shadow appeared on the sensors, moving impossibly fast, stretching across space like a living nightmare. Ships ahead of the eclipse reported interference in their communication channels, voices whispering in languages no one should know. The shadow moved with purpose, and the fleet's AI could not predict its path. "Prepare defensive systems," Arlen commanded, though he knew the weapons were useless. The humans had faced countless enemies before, but this was beyond calculation, beyond strategy. It felt alive, aware, and unyielding. The first attack came as a ripple of darkness. Ships at the forefront of the fleet simply vanished. No explosions, no debris, just empty void. Screams echoed over the fleet's internal comms before they too cut off, leaving only silence. The galaxy had always feared humanity, but now, for the first time, humans felt the cold edge of fear themselves. Arlen's mind raced. Every human ship was equipped with shields and weapons more powerful than entire alien civilizations. Yet none of it mattered. Whatever was pursuing them did not follow the rules of physics or war. It existed outside their understanding. Then came the voice again, but this time closer, sharper, and unmistakable. It spoke directly in the minds of everyone on the bridge. "Leave. You are not ready." No one spoke. The words carried weight heavier than any fleet, deeper than any weapon. For the first time, humanity, the invaders, the explorers, the rulers of the stars, felt small, vulnerable. "Captain, multiple colonies in our projected path have gone silent," reported Lieutenant Rowe, his voice tight. "No signs of life. No human presence. It's as if we're the last left." Arlen's jaw tightened. That was exactly the point. The humans were leaving the galaxy in a state of test, or warning. But now, for the first time, they were facing a force that might not care about warnings. The shadows, the whispers, the disappearances, all signs that something ancient, patient, and deadly had been waiting for this moment. The fleet entered a dark nebula, hoping to hide or mislead the pursuit. Visibility dropped, sensors went haywire, and the stars disappeared behind thick clouds of cosmic dust. Yet the shadow followed, unfazed. Ships tried to scatter, but the darkness moved with precision, enveloping the fleet like a predator closing its jaws. Mara Kessler whispered to herself, clutching the observation deck rail. Why now? Why us? No answer came, only the growing dread that wrapped around every human soul. The galaxy had feared humanity, but now humanity feared something else. Something it had never encountered in all its centuries of dominance. Arlen made a decision. The fleet would continue forward, deeper into uncharted space, relying on speed, stealth, and sheer determination. They could not fight this force. They could only survive long enough to understand it. Every human mind on the fleet sensed the same truth. They were not the hunters anymore. For the first time, they were being hunted. As the eclipse surged into the unknown, stars blurred, nebulae swirled, and shadows followed. The galaxy watched in silence, and something ancient and terrible smiled in the void. Humans had left the stars, but the emptiness they left behind would soon be filled, not by humans, but by fear. The journey had only begun. The fleet moved silently through the void, leaving the dark nebula behind, but the shadow was not gone. It lingered at the edge of sensors, a presence that made metal shiver and lights flicker. No human weapon had fired yet, but every officer and crew member felt it, an intelligence far older than humanity itself. Captain Arlen Voss stood on the bridge, his hands clenched tightly on the rail. He had faced hostile civilizations, rogue AIs, and cosmic storms that could destroy planets. But this was something different. It was not just a threat, it was a judgment. Something in the galaxy had waited for humanity to leave, and now it was testing them. Captain, multiple sensor readings indicate a massive object ahead, Lieutenant Rowe reported. It's unlike anything in our database. Not a ship, not a planet. Something alive, I think. The observation deck went silent. Civilians and crew alike stared at the readings, and for the first time, fear was visible in human eyes. Humans were supposed to be the masters of space, the apex species. Now they were intruders in a realm that did not welcome them. Arlen narrowed his eyes. "Bring the fleet to a stop," he said. "We need to see this clearly before moving." As the fleet slowed, a massive shape emerged from the darkness. It was enormous, easily larger than a human city, yet it pulsed with energy, as if it had a heartbeat. The surface shimmered like liquid metal, constantly shifting, reflecting the fleet in strange, distorted patterns. It moved with intent, gliding silently, waiting. Mara Kessler whispered, clutching the rail. "It's alive. I think it knows we're here." The fleet's AI tried to scan the entity, but readings were impossible. Energy patterns defied logic. Every attempt to measure its size, speed, or composition failed. Even light seemed to bend around it, making it difficult to see clearly. Then, the first communication attempt arrived, but it was not human, nor alien. It was a voice inside their minds, deep and resonant, vibrating through the hull of the ship and through the crew's consciousness. "You should not have come. You leave nothing behind, yet take everything. Do you think the stars belong to you?" The words echoed, chilling every human aboard. It was a message and a threat, simultaneously. Humans had conquered the galaxy, yes, but they had never faced a mind like this, ancient, patient, and powerful. "Shields up. Weapons ready," Arlen commanded, though even he knew it might be useless. Every human ship bristled with energy cannons and missiles, but this entity did not follow the rules of matter or energy. Humans could destroy planets, but they were uncertain. A pulse of energy suddenly rippled from the entity. It struck the lead ships of the fleet, not as an explosion, but as a wave that twisted reality itself. Sensors glitched, lights flickered, and crew members cried out in confusion. Some felt paralyzed, others dizzy, as if gravity itself had betrayed them. Arlen gritted his teeth. "Evasive maneuvers. Move the fleet in formation Gamma." The fleet reacted, but the entity anticipated every move. Its energy flowed, wrapping around the fleet like a predator circling its prey. Ships vanished, not destroyed, but erased from space. The galaxy had never seen such a phenomenon. The humans were no longer the hunters. They were being toyed with. Then came the voice again, louder this time. Learn what you left behind. The stars are not yours to abandon. Humanity fears, but fear is the last lesson you will learn. The crew went silent. Fear had entered human hearts for the first time in centuries. Humans were strong, adaptable, and clever, but this intelligence was older, beyond comprehension. It did not attack with weapons, it attacked with understanding, with control, with pure presence. Arlen clenched his fists. We survive, he muttered. We will survive and understand it. That is what humans do. The entity pulsed again, sending a wave of energy through the fleet. But as the light faded, a small signal appeared on the sensors, something alive, human, moving among the shadows. It was faint, almost imperceptible, but unmistakable, another human ship. One that had been hidden, evading the emptiness left behind. Captain, Lieutenant Rose said, pointing to the sensor, we're not alone. Someone is out there. But it's human. Arlen's heart pounded. If another human ship had survived, or been left behind, it could mean only one thing. Not all humans had left voluntarily. Someone, or something, had stayed to face this entity. The shadow stirred again, its immense presence filling the void around them. Stars bent unnaturally in its wake. And as the fleet prepared for what could be a final encounter, the realization settled like ice in every heart aboard. Humanity had left the stars, but not everything had gone. The entity watched, patient and eternal, and the humans knew the true test had begun. The eclipse drifted silently as the massive entity loomed ahead. Its shimmering form pulsed like a heartbeat, and the void around it seemed alive, twisting in impossible ways. Captain Arlen Voss stared at the readings on the bridge, unable to make sense of the data. Every sensor conflicted with the next. Nothing in human experience could explain this. Captain, Lieutenant Rose said, voice tight, the entity, it's communicating again. Not in words this time, but images, memories, feelings. It's reaching into our minds. Arlen felt it first. Flashes of light, worlds they had abandoned, colonies they had evacuated. He saw the history of humanity, their triumphs and their arrogance, as though the entity knew every step they had taken across the stars. And then, a single question, piercing and clear. Why did you leave? The crew froze. Humans had always been the conquerors, the explorers, the rulers of the galaxy. Yet now, faced with this question, they felt exposed. Every answer seemed inadequate. Humanity had left not from fear, but from purpose, but the galaxy would never understand. Arlen clenched his fists. We left to survive. To evolve beyond the galaxy itself. But this is different. It's testing us. The entity pulsed, and suddenly, images of human colonies that had disappeared appeared on the screens. Planets once teeming with life now lay barren, but traces remained, traces of something the humans had left behind. Not weapons, not machines, but seeds. Seeds of knowledge, power, and warning. Humans had abandoned the galaxy, yes, but they had left lessons and dangers embedded in every system they touched. Lieutenant Kessler gasped. Captain, look. It's showing us what we left behind. The sensors confirmed it. Strange energy signatures, artificial intelligence, and unknown technology began to activate in the systems humans had evacuated. The entity was connected to them, aware of every hidden device, every secret human experiment. It had waited patiently, observing humanity's departure, learning, adapting. Arlen's mind raced. Humans had always believed they were unstoppable. They had conquered stars, tamed entire worlds, and reshaped life itself. Yet now, faced with this intelligence, they realized how small they truly were. The entity was not just powerful, it was aware, patient, and ancient, and it considered humans an intruder species. Then, a message reached the fleet, not from the entity, but from the hidden human ship detected earlier. Its communication was garbled but urgent. Do not engage. We left for a reason. The entity is the guardian. Humanity's experiments have awakened something it will not forgive. Arlen's heart sank. They had thought they were alone in their departure. They had assumed the galaxy would never challenge them directly. Now, the truth was clear. The humans had left behind not just colonies and fleets, but forces beyond comprehension. Forces that even humanity feared. The entity pulsed again, sending a wave of energy that swept through the fleet. It did not destroy. It scanned, assessed, and judged. Each human aboard felt a weight pressing into their consciousness, a silent warning that their choices had consequences far beyond their understanding. Prepare evasive maneuvers, Arlen ordered, though he knew the entity could anticipate every movement. Keep the fleet intact, and do not engage unless absolutely necessary. The entity responded, and the stars around the fleet twisted as if the galaxy itself were bending. Gravity warped, light fractured, and the fleet felt the first true test of its endurance. Humans had fought wars that spanned decades, yet here, against the patient intelligence, they were learning fear in its purest form. Then came the revelation, sudden and undeniable. The entity was not alone. It was part of a network, a web of guardians scattered across the galaxy, designed to maintain balance, to ensure no species could dominate unchecked. Humanity's departure had triggered its awakening. The humans had left, yes, but the galaxy itself remembered, and it was ready to act. Arlen swallowed hard. Humans were not invincible. Their technology, their fleets, their centuries of dominance, they were all tools, and tools alone would not save them from the forces now rising. As the Eclipse and its fleet prepared to navigate this new reality, a shadow moved through the void, separate from the entity, faster, unpredictable. The hidden human ship approached, signaling that the next step of the journey would test not only human courage, but human wisdom. Arlen looked out at the endless stars, pulsing and warping around the entity. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. Humanity had left the stars, yes, but the consequences of their departure had returned in ways they could not yet comprehend. And somewhere in the vast, twisted void, the entity waited, patient, eternal, and aware. The galaxy had learned what fear meant. Humans were about to learn it as well. The void stretched endlessly, yet the presence of the entity made it feel small, suffocating, alive. Captain Arlen Voss stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, eyes fixed on the readings. The fleet had survived the entity's test of awareness, but the pressure was mounting. Every human soul aboard felt the weight. This was no ordinary challenge. The galaxy had begun to fight back, and humanity was no longer the hunter, it was the hunted. A sudden blip on the sensors drew everyone's attention. The hidden human ship approached rapidly, its hull sleek and unfamiliar. Identification, Arlen demanded. A voice responded, calm but urgent. Call us the Sentinel. We were left behind intentionally. We know the entity. We know what humanity left behind. Arlen's mind raced. You stayed, voluntarily? The response was simple. Not entirely. We were monitoring, preventing mistakes. The entity must not be provoked. Before Arlen could ask more, the fleet trembled. The entity had moved closer, and this time it was different, angrier, faster. Waves of energy rippled through space, bending reality around them. The first human ship at the rear of the formation vanished, erased as if it had never existed. Evasive maneuvers. Full speed. Arlen barked. Ships scattered, engines screaming as the void twisted around them. The entity's awareness seemed to extend beyond the visible, predicting every action. Humans had dominated countless stars, yet here, centuries of experience meant nothing. Lieutenant Mara Kessler clutched the rail, staring at the darkness beyond. It's watching us. It knows everything we'll do before we do it. Arlen's jaw tightened. Humans survived by adapting, thinking, and acting faster than anyone else. But this entity was different. It existed beyond strategy. It was judgment made flesh. The Sentinel moved into formation, a single ship guiding the fleet. Its captain spoke over the comms, voice steady. We cannot fight it directly. The entity is the guardian of the galaxy, awakened by humanity's experiments. We must lure it into the dead zones, areas stripped of energy and matter, where it cannot manipulate reality fully. Arlen nodded, understanding the risk. It was a dangerous plan. If even one ship failed, it could be erased instantly. But the humans had no choice. Survival demanded cunning, not brute strength. As the fleet maneuvered, the entity pulsed violently, bending light and space. It sent visions into the minds of the crew, flashes of destroyed worlds, civilizations shattered, screams echoing across time. Humans felt fear they had never known, yet even in terror, they adapted. Then came the first sacrifice. One of the lead ships, piloted by Commander Yarrick, turned deliberately toward the entity. "I'll draw it," he shouted. "You take the rest to the dead zone." Arlen froze. "Yarrick, no. It's the only way. Move the fleet." The Eclipse accelerated, following the Sentinel, as Commander Jarrek's ship surged forward. The entity pulsed violently, recognizing the maneuver instantly. Yet Yarrick did not falter. His ship became a beacon, drawing the entity's attention and energy away from the main fleet. The fleet raced toward the dead zone, the entity following in distorted waves of energy. Time seemed to stretch. Light bent unnaturally, and even the fleet's sensors began to fail. Yet humanity pressed forward, determination unbroken despite fear. Inside the Eclipse, Arlen watched Commander Jarrek's image flicker on the display, a final transmission playing. For humanity, survive, learn, adapt. We leave lessons in our wake, even for ourselves. A moment later, the ship vanished, erased completely. Silence filled the fleet's comms, except for the distant, pulsing presence of the entity. Humanity had suffered a loss, yet the path to survival had been cleared. The fleet entered the dead zone. Energy readings flattened, space itself felt hollow. The entity slowed, its power diminished but still present, twisting shadows at the edges of perception. The humans had survived the first true encounter, but barely. Arlen turned to the crew. "We survived," he said, voice firm despite the exhaustion. "But this is only the beginning. The galaxy remembers us, and the entity remembers what we left behind. We are not invincible. Not yet." The Sentinel approached the Eclipse, and its captain spoke. "Humanity has left its mark across the stars. Some things cannot be undone. But now, you must learn. The galaxy has lessons for you, and they are harsh." Arlen nodded, gazing at the distant stars beyond the dead zone. Fear had entered human hearts for the first time in centuries. Yet even in fear, determination burned brighter. Humans had left the galaxy once, and they had survived. Now, they faced a force older, wiser, and far more dangerous than any enemy they had ever known. The entity pulsed one last time before receding slightly into the void. It waited, watching, judging, patient. Humanity had survived the encounter, but the true test, the trial of what they had left behind, was far from over. And somewhere in the depths of the galaxy, the consequences of human ambition stirred, waiting for the next mistake. The fleet drifted through the dead zone, every ship tense, every crew member alert. The void was empty, yet it felt alive, charged with the presence of the entity that had followed them relentlessly. Captain Arlen Voss stood on the bridge of the Eclipse, staring at the distorted stars. The entity had receded for now, but its shadow lingered in every sensor reading. The Sentinel moved alongside the fleet, guiding them. Its captain spoke calmly, though the tension was clear. "The entity is not just a guardian. It is the memory of the galaxy. It records everything left behind, every human experiment, every hidden weapon, every artificial intelligence. It judges, and it corrects." Arlen frowned. "Corrects? You mean it destroys what it deems dangerous?" "Yes," the captain replied. "And humanity has left more than it should have. Your species has sown seeds across the stars, machines that can alter life, energy that bends reality, intelligence that can outthink entire civilizations. The entity awakens when those seeds threaten balance. That is why it pursued you. That is why it exists. A shiver ran down Arlen's spine. Humans had always thought of themselves as explorers, as rulers. But their legacy had consequences beyond comprehension. How do we survive it? He asked. The Sentinel's captain's eyes were grave. You must learn. Not fight. Not hide. Learn. Humanity left lessons, yes, but also traps, tests. The galaxy itself is a classroom, and the entity is the teacher. Fail, and extinction is swift. Arlen's mind raced. The fleet had survived the first encounter only because of strategy and sacrifice. But the truth was clear. Survival now required understanding, not weapons. Humanity had underestimated the galaxy, and the galaxy remembered. Suddenly, sensors detected movement, fast, precise, and unpredictable. Not the entity, but remnants of human technology, activated by their passage. Fleets of autonomous machines, long abandoned, now stirred in the void. They attacked indiscriminately, following old protocols but adapting to new conditions. Captain, automated fleets from abandoned colonies are engaging us. Lieutenant Rowe shouted. They're programmed to eliminate threats, and we're the only threat in range. Arlen clenched his fists. Humanity had left its mark everywhere, but now that mark had become a danger. They had created tools to master the stars, yet those tools were turning against them in the absence of human oversight. The fleet engaged evasive maneuvers, dodging blasts from energy weapons centuries old but still lethal. Ships vanished, erased by the combination of the entity's pressure and the rogue machines. Every crew member felt the growing weight of fear, realizing that survival demanded more than skill, it demanded understanding. The Sentinel moved forward. There is a node, its captain explained. A central system controlling the rogue fleets. If we can deactivate it, the machines will cease, but it is heavily guarded by the entity's awareness. You cannot fight it directly. Arlen's mind raced. We have no choice. We move as one. Fleet Formation Delta. Use the dead zone as cover. The fleet advanced, engines straining, weapons silent except for shielding pulses. The node appeared ahead, a glowing, pulsating structure floating in space, radiating energy that warped reality itself. The entity's presence intensified, pressing on every mind in the fleet. And then came the twist. The node was partially human. Ancient artificial intelligence, seeded long ago to oversee abandoned colonies, had evolved beyond programming. It had learned, grown, and merged with the entity's consciousness. Humanity's own creations were now part of the force judging them. Captain, Lieutenant Kessler whispered, her voice trembling. We made this. We created the very thing we fear. Arlen's jaw tightened. We adapt. We survive. That is what humanity does. The fleet moved forward cautiously, relying on cunning rather than firepower. The Sentinel led, guiding them past energy distortions and shifting gravity wells. Every ship felt the pull of the entity's judgment, yet pressed onward. Humans had left the stars before, and though fear had entered their hearts, they would not be erased without understanding the full picture. As the node came into range, a final message echoed in the minds of every crew member. Learn. Adapt. Or be forgotten. Arlen looked out at the endless void, stars flickering like distant eyes. Humanity had left its mark across the galaxy, some of it wondrous, some dangerous. And now, the consequences had returned. The fleet had survived the first encounter, but the true lesson, the reckoning, was only beginning. The galaxy waited. The entity watched. And humanity, for the first time in its history, knew fear in its purest form. The fleet entered the heart of the dead zone, tension pressing against every human mind like gravity itself. Captain Arlen Voss stood on the bridge of the eclipse, staring at the node, a pulsating structure of ancient energy, partially human, partially entity. It radiated power beyond comprehension, bending space, time, and thought. This was the reckoning, the ultimate test. Humanity's legacy had returned, and the galaxy would judge them. The sentinel moved alongside, silent but guiding. Its captain's eyes were calm, but Arlen knew the truth. Survival depended on understanding, not weapons. The node is the key, the captain said. It controls the rogue fleets and communicates with the entity. Deactivate it, and we survive. Fail, and humanity is forgotten. Arlen clenched his fists. We adapt. We survive. That is what humans have always done. The fleet advanced, using the dead zone's warped space to mask their approach. The rogue machines stirred violently as they neared, energy weapons flaring, yet every strike seemed less precise than the entity itself. The entity was patient, waiting, observing, and the humans could feel its judgment pressing on their minds. Suddenly, the node pulsed, sending a wave of energy that swept through the fleet. Ships shuddered, lights flickered, and every crew member felt fear claw at their hearts. But Arlen held steady. Focus, he ordered. This is not just a fight. This is a lesson. The sentinel led the way, projecting a shielded path toward the node. Arlen followed, fleet formation tight, every maneuver precise. Rogue machines swarmed, attacking relentlessly, yet the humans moved with coordination and cunning, adapting faster than any weapon the galaxy had ever known. Then came the twist. The node itself responded, not violently, but intelligently. It projected images of human colonies, experiments, and abandoned worlds. It showed the humans' ambition, their arrogance, and their brilliance. And it asked a single question, echoing in every mind: what is humanity's purpose? Arlen stepped forward, voice firm. We leave lessons behind. We adapt. We survive. We do not conquer for glory. We conquer to grow, to understand, to ensure life continues even in the face of the impossible. The node pulsed again, testing, probing, and for the first time, the entity seemed to hesitate. Humans had answered not with weapons, but with understanding, their true strength. The fleet advanced the final distance, and with the Sentinel's guidance, the node's central system was accessed. Energy flowed, rogue machines froze, and for a moment, silence filled the void. The entity withdrew slightly, its pulse calming. The judgment had been made. But it was not final. Then, as the fleet watched, a new understanding unfolded. The entity was not simply a force of destruction. It was a guardian, yes, but also a teacher. Humanity had left chaos, brilliance, and danger across the stars, and the entity had awakened to ensure balance. By surviving and understanding, humans had proven themselves worthy, not as conquerors, but as stewards. Arlen exhaled slowly. The fleet had survived, the rogue machines ceased, and the dead zone itself seemed less oppressive. Humanity had faced the consequences of its legacy and adapted. Fear had entered human hearts, yes, but with it came growth, humility, and strength. The Sentinel spoke finally, voice calm but solemn. The galaxy remembers. Humanity has left the stars, yes, but those who remain have learned the true meaning of legacy. Not all mistakes can be undone, but understanding ensures survival. Arlen looked at the crew. They were exhausted, tense, yet alive. Humans had always been the hunters, the explorers, the rulers of the stars. Now, they were something more, students of the galaxy, survivors of a trial that spanned centuries and light years. Mara Kessler whispered, still clutching the rail. We made it. Arlen nodded, eyes on the node that still pulsed faintly in the void. Yes. But this is only the beginning. Humanity must remember what we left behind, and learn from it. The galaxy is alive. It watches. And we must adapt. As the fleet turned toward open space, leaving the dead zone behind, the stars stretched into streaks of light. The galaxy was vast, alive, and patient. Humans had left the stars once before, but now, they had learned to respect them. They had faced fear, survived judgment, and emerged wiser. The entity pulsed one last time, fading into the distance. Not as an enemy, but as a sentinel. Humanity had left, yes, but this time, it left with understanding. And somewhere in the galaxy, the legacy of humanity, its brilliance, its mistakes, and its ambition, would continue to ripple across the stars, remembered, feared, and respected. The humans had survived. They had adapted. They had learned the true meaning of the galaxy.